Hello, and welcome back to The Season, the podcast from FYCit that goes behind the scenes of awards season. I'm your host, Ryland Aldrich, the founder of the FYCit app. In case you're new here, The Season is a nuts and bolts conversation about the machinery that is the awards world. Last week, we chatted with Hugh Fink, the wonderfully personable executive producer of the Writers Guild Awards. Hugh had some great insights into what goes into a live awards show. If you missed that conversation, go back and give it a listen. Today, I'm excited to chat with Ray Costa, an awards strategist who specializes in film and TV music campaigns. Ray's a real expert in this space, and we had a fun conversation about some of the outside-the-box campaigns he's become known for in awards PR circles. You're going to want to stick around for that. But first, let's dive into some of the biggest news from last week. The Critics' Choice Awards have announced a new TV partner for their ceremony, which takes place on January 12th. The awards are leaving their previous home on the CW and will air live on E, the NBC Universal cable channel. They've also announced that they will stream the next day on Peacock. I find it a bit interesting they wouldn't push for a simulcast on Peacock, as I'm not sure how many people are watching an awards show on 24 hours delay. But either way, they can see Chelsea Handler returning as host for the third straight year. The SCAD Savannah Film Festival has announced its awards-packed gala screenings and honoree lineup. Gala screenings include such frontrunners as Emilia Perez, Blitz, and The Brutalist, along with hopefuls like The Last Showgirl, September 5, Nickel Boys, and many more. The full lineup reads like Clayton Davis's prediction list, with almost everything in contention playing or being honored in one way or another. The honorees list is a great preview of the red carpet for award shows this season, with names like Mikey Madison from Anora being honored with the Breakthrough Award, Demi Moore receiving the Icon Award linked to a role in The Substance, and Kieran Culkin getting the Virtuoso Award for his turn in A Real Pain. That's really just a taste, as I can't list them all, but SCAD also has events focused on contending docs, animated films, a number of international features, and panels and honors for awards-likely craftspeople as well. The fest kicks off October 26th. I'm curious what you think about the roles these awards-focused regional film festivals play in the race. Write to me at podcast@fycit.app or drop us a line on our socials at FYCit Share your thoughts and we'll read some in this space next week. Speaking of awards-focused festivals, our friends over at The Ankler have announced a series of events they'll be hosting at the Montclair Film Festival, which includes panels on AI, the state of the industry, and a panel on awards season hosted by the season's inaugural guest, Katie Rich. If you're near New Jersey, please check out the wonderful festival, which starts this Friday. Over in Screenings World, Focus has started listing screenings for Conclave. Disney is rolling out Inside Out 2 and Young Woman and the Sea, and Netflix has begun adding screenings for R.J. Cutler's documentary Martha. Screenings continue to pop up daily. Make sure to check the FYCit app for the latest. And if you're an awards voter and not yet using FYCit, head over to fycit.app to stay on top of all the screenings and events. Now let's get to today's interview with Ray Costa. Ray Costa is the head of Costa Communications, a PR and marketing firm he founded in 1988. He specializes in film and TV campaigns for song and score and has been involved in countless award-winning runs, including Billie Eilish, Elton John, and Lady Gaga. When it comes to song and score awards, there's likely no better authority in Hollywood than Ray, and certainly none with a better tan. So Ray, how's your season?
Season's good. Good to be here, Ryland.
So Ray, you are a music awards publicist. What exactly does a music awards publicist do?
Well, I do both strategy and publicity. So I treat it like a political campaign because that's what it's like. I've been working in this arena for over 30 years now. I worked on campaigns for the Weinstein Company and Miramax with Harvey Weinstein. He pretty much wrote the book on how to run a campaign. So yeah, the job is to get publicity for our clients, treat it like a political campaign in the fact that instead of constituents, we have voters, whether it's the music branch of the Motion Picture Academy or the music branch of the Television Academy or BAFTA voters or Golden Globe. So it's getting the right message in front of these people about whatever score and song we're working on, why it should be a contender and why they should really consider it for the awards.
So in this 30-plus year career, has your interest always been on the music side of things? Did you have a background in music before publicity?
I love music and I love film. I've taken lessons on virtually every instrument till I got bored with it. And so I have a little bit of knowledge of all musical instruments, but I don't play anything very well. But I grew up with a baby grand piano at home. My dad played every night, and I'd go to concerts and things, and I really love all kinds of music. I fell in love with the composing side of it, the film music side of it, when I went to my first scoring session. I didn't even know what exactly a composer did for films. I didn't know what a scoring session was. And I was there in the room with a 60 or 70 piece orchestra at one of the major studios. And the composer was conducting some of his work, and there was a scene from the film on screen, and the orchestra was playing the cue for that scene. And I fell in love with the whole process. And I found, these were super talented composers and songwriters without the huge ego you get with a lot of actors. Not everyone, but my experience. And the first composer was Jerry Goldsmith, who's a legendary composer. So I started, the bar is way up here because if you don't know Jerry Goldsmith, he was the composer of Patton. He won the Oscar for the only horror movie, I think, to ever win a best score was for The Omen, and did Rudy and so many other great movies, Air Force One. Anyway, so I fell in love with the process, and then it just kind of kept evolving and working with the best composers of film and TV.
So those early days of your career in Hollywood, you said you fell in love with the music side. When you started your company, was that specifically to work with musicians and work with composers on awards campaigns, or did that evolve over time?
That evolved over time. When I first came out here, I was a news reporter and a talk show producer at a news talk radio station in Memphis, Tennessee. And it started off I was a board op operator from 11 to 7 a.m. on Sunday nights. I was going to school too. This was at WHBQ Radio, which WHBQ is a station that played the very first Elvis Presley record, That's All Right Mama. And they were the first station in the Mid-South to play a Beatles record. Anyway, I started as an intern there in the news department, and then they became a news talk station, and I worked in that and I was producing some of the talk shows. My goal was always to move to LA, and one day the news director said to me, "You like that glitzy lifestyle. You should go into public relations." And he meant it as an insult, but it was like an epiphany. Yes, public relations. So I did an interview with the head of publicity of Fox, and it talked about how media affects children and media hype. And then I stayed in touch with him. I came out to LA to personally hand him a recording of the show, and he took me to lunch, and we stayed in touch. And he lost his job, and he said, "I know you want to move to LA. I'm starting a company. If you come out here, I can hire you part-time." So I was working with him in PR part-time and bartending and doing whatever else. And then eventually he retired, and I couldn't get a job. I couldn't find a job in PR. So I decided, screw it. I'm going to start my own company. And I was doing anything I could. I was a product called tie knot covers, a silver plated thing that go over the knot of a tie, was a client. I had a neighbor that his brother was doing a little guest appearance on a little show called Seinfeld. And he was Batu, the Pakistani waiter. And I got him great press. And then it just evolved. And suddenly I had a chance to work with a record label. And that's how it got started.
So at that time in Hollywood, were awards-specific publicists a bit of a rarity? And was it the Weinstein era that kind of brought in that side of the awards business? Yeah,
because I wasn't that aware of it. I was very green. There wasn't any kind of a workbook. And even the first client who hired me for film was Christopher Young. I would get him submitted for Oscars, and I'd submit for Golden Globes. I was doing events, and Ronnie Chasen, God rest her soul, she was also involved doing music campaigns for Miramax. And I told her I wanted to do this event at a pub because the score is very Celtic. And she said, "No, you don't do that. You have to take them to, Craig's and these A-list restaurants." And Chris was sitting next to me. He goes, "Don't listen to her. You do what you said. If you don't, I'll fire you." And I did it. And I had all these voting members there. The average age was literally over 70, 80 years old. And, there were these sweet little ladies sitting there, and they're saying, like, "Oh my God, this is so much fun. I've never been to a pub before." And I had a Celtic band playing Celtic songs, but then also incorporating his score into some of it. And he got nominated. And I remember calling him up, and I was in tears. You thought I just won the Golden Globe myself. And that was like one of the most amazing moments of my career. And then what really changed it for me was when Alexander Desplat, who I'd worked with on a bunch of projects, when he won for Shape of Water, he won both the Golden Globes. He thanked me from the stage. And when he won the Oscar, he thanked me from the stage. And that changed my life because, the next day, the head of awards at Disney was calling me up. "Hey, Ray, we want to work with you," and this and that. And it changed my life.
So when most people think about campaigning for awards, they think about screenings with Q&As with the creators, or they think about having a picture on the cover of a Guild magazine. But Ray, you are known for thinking outside the box, doing big events. You mentioned the event at the Celtic Bar early in your career. Do you see these outside the box events as a function of music awards specifically, or is this something that you've really just decided to specialize in?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all outside of the box thinking, and also how to navigate through the rules too. A few years ago, I was working with Philip Glass. He had scored the documentary Jane, about Jane Goodall, and National Geographic paid a pretty high price to have an event at the Hollywood Bowl. There were the box seats with picnic baskets, with wine and blankets and food, everything. It was quite the setup. And this was what they were putting all their money into. But the problem was the music branch had a rule that members, its Motion Picture Academy music branch, are not allowed to attend events where there is music being performed from an Oscar-eligible film. So songs and score couldn't be. So I challenged the person who was in charge of that for the music branch, and I said, okay, what if people are invited from an organization, from another guild that they're associated with? Are you going to penalize them? Like, let's say SAG has something that goes, they said, no, we will never challenge a member of another organization from attending an event. So I started having the SCL as sponsors. I had to, and then it's now evolved that I have all the performing rights organizations as sponsors, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC. And so it's thinking, like you said, outside the box, but also it's thinking outside the box, but doing it in a way that you're not breaking any rules. And so I've learned how to navigate through all this, and I'm very proud of that.
Have you ever been involved or tried to do anything maybe a little too outside the box that just didn't work for the music branch?
I'm sure. It's a blessing and a curse that I don't remember negative things. As people bring it up, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I'm trying to think. I mean, I go out on a limb all the time, and I just did it with John Debney, brilliant composer who did Passion of the Christ, and also favorites like Elf and Hocus Pocus, and just tons of great projects. He did Horizon. He had worked many times with Kevin Costner. He did the first one and the second one. And after the first one, it was shelved. And then Kevin was determined to finish Horizon 2, and then it premiered in Venice. And I told John he should go. And he said, well, they're not flying anybody out. I said, I know. You should go. You should fly yourself out, because it's the best exposure I can potentially get you if you're there. So he said, well, do you know if I'll be on the press conferences? I don't know. I said, yeah, we're going to get you press. And then he says, okay, buy the ticket, this and that. You sure? Yes. And it's like, crap. Now I got to get him press. And then I reached one of the producers who really liked John. And then I said, I need to see if I can get John on the press conference. Is that possible? He flew himself out and all this. And the next thing you know, he's doing the press conference. And then I hired a photographer to shoot some photos of John in Venice and his wife. And then there's great shots of them alone with Kevin Costner. And it was like the best. And they had the best time. And it's like, yeah, it could have been the opposite. It could have been a disaster to say, what are you doing here? Get out. We don't have a ticket for you. To do a good job, you have to take chances. And sometimes things will fail. And that's how life is. If you don't take the chances, I'm producing this event in Transylvania. I'm bankrolling it myself, and I hope it's going to go well. And if it doesn't, okay. You just have to take chances.
So you say you only remember the successes. Do you have a tally on how many Oscar-winning campaigns you've been a part of?
A lot. In terms of Oscar winning, yeah. I mean, I don't know the exact number. So I don't know. It could be like say 9 or 10 at least. But when you come to like nominations, it's like, probably over 100 nominations at least. Because, like this past season, we were representing all 5 of the songs and I think 3 of the scores. So I couldn't lose when it came to the songs this year. I could have, bet on it.
How do you keep up to date with what's happening in new music trends and new musicians?
Well, I was on the phone now because I'm trying to get as a client these people who did a little movie. It's a new movie from Netflix with Amelia Perez. It's been, and this couple, they scored it and did all the songs for Amelia Perez. And they just got a special award at Toronto Film Festival. So they're definitely the up and coming people of the year. They're the ones to watch.
So basically, you're just always on the lookout. You're watching new movies, and then it's good old fashioned shoe leather trying to track them down and let them know that how you can help them.
Yeah, and also I love it when there's something I'm passionate about and trying to take it as far as we can.
Ray, you've been involved with countless award-winning campaigns. What still keeps you excited about doing this job year after year? What keeps you motivated?
You know what? The other day, when what I was expecting to win didn't win the Emmys, somehow they think it's your fault. They think it's my fault. Like somehow I didn't do enough. I was devastated. I was angry. I was so angry. I had to go take a walk because I was so angry. And there's nothing else I could have done. And then it kept getting called on it. And I said, okay, look, you know what? Don't effing hire me again. I'll stop right now. Because it really bothered me. And I get that sometimes too. You get the accolades when people win. But also when it doesn't, you're persona non grata. And that's the downside of it. But that next day, I got a lovely message from Benj Pasek and Justin Paul for Only Murders in the Building and that song that I was working. And they won. And they had a team, but both of them reaching out to me and saying, we owe so much to you. Thank you so much for this. And that meant a lot to me. And also being part of an EGOT team, getting them the EGOT because they had the Grammy, the Oscar, the Tony. And so, yeah, I love what I do. And, it's like anything. It's like any relationship. You have good days and bad days. And, you just have to work through it. And nothing's easy. And I've learned from mistakes. I have something I say. It's like you can't take your foot off of the gas because you can't assume because everybody thinks you're the favorite. And I could have done like a couple more blasts, but I was told by one of the people involved on one of the things that didn't win that could have won. They said, no, we don't want to look like we're begging for it. So we stopped and then it didn't win. So it's like, I still think, okay, what if we would have done a little bit more,
So Ray, we like to end our interviews with some lightning round questions. You can just make your answer, a sentence or two, keep it short or expand if you want to. You down for that?
Sure.
What is your favorite award show to attend?
The Golden Globes. Because especially if you have a winner, because all the parties are right there in the building. People are drinking and having a good time throughout. It's much more sociable than any of the other shows.
Do you prefer Emmy season or Oscar season?
Oscar season. Emmy season has gotten so crazy. It feels like there's even more screenings and events, and I still like Oscar season. I like them both, but I feel more connected to the Oscars than with the Emmys.
What's your favorite film festival to attend?
Well, selfishly, Middleburg, because I'm involved with that, and it's a beautiful resort town, and it's 30 minutes outside of D.C., and Sheila Johnson, who started it, is a hotel magnate, and that was being pushed by Robert Redford, telling her she should do a festival there, and she did. In terms of domestically, that's one of my favorites.
What is your post-award season ritual?
You know what? I actually don't have a post-award season ritual. I think having lunch with Emily Lou Aldrich is part of it. There's nothing big ritualistic I do. I think it's like just a sigh of relief because it's, it gets pretty intense.
At an award show, do you prefer theater or table seating?
I love the Golden Globes for that reason that it's more table seating when you're inside the room. Theater seating at the Oscars is fine too if you have good seats because then, you can always sneak out and have a drink because the bar is still open and then come back in. So.
Do you have a least favorite awards speech cliche?
Political speeches. I think it's very divisive. You're losing 50% of the audience, no matter what you think. People are mistaken that they think everybody's thinking like they do, and they don't. So that's not the biggest thing for me. I love the best are inspirational speeches, the one that really gets you. Like, look up Mr. Rogers' Emmy acceptance speech, and it's like 30 seconds, and it's beautiful. And it's exactly what you would expect from Fred Rogers. So that's my advice.
What's your favorite past appetizer at a screening or event reception?
Beef Wellington. Mini beef Wellingtons. They do that at the SCL Awards. Oh, the SCL Awards are great awards too. But yeah, the little mini beef Wellingtons, it's like, it's the best.
Would you be more likely to cry or swear during an acceptance speech?
Cry. No matter who it was, if it's really touching, yeah.
Thinking back over all the years of all the award shows, does one favorite musical performance come to mind?
I got to say, I'm Just Ken this year was phenomenal. It was one of the best. I think the song Scene that Diane Warren did, that I really prodded her to perform there, because that way she'd get marquee credit, where they did. And performances from Laura Pausini, Diane Warren, and that was on the roof. I remember being there when they were taping it, being on the roof of the Hollywood Museum at the magic hour when it's like dusk, and being up there was just an amazing time.
All right, final question. What is one unreasonably early award season prediction that you're willing to make?
That if John Williams has anything this year, that will get nominated for score.
Ray Costa, thank you so much for your time. Great talking to you.
Same here. Thanks so much.
We're back, and I'm with our FYCit field agent, Tony Miros, our resident FYC event junkie. Tony will be phoning in each week from the awards circuit to give us the scoop. So, Tony, how's it going?
Hey, Rylan, how you doing? It's been fun. I'm having a good time so far.
That's great. So, Tony, last week you mentioned you were on the list for the big Rings of Power event. How was your time in Middle-earth?
I got to say, that show, I don't know if you've watched it, but it's getting better and better as time goes by. So we got the chance, because it was for SAG-NONCOM, to watch the 74-minute finale. And it was great. And with the cast, some of the cast were there. There's a huge cast. So they had the main people from that episode were there, including Charlie Vickers, Charles Edwards, Maxim Baldry, Owen Arthur, who plays Prince Durin, he's so funny as a dwarf, and then he's not in real life, he's normal size. So, but it's pretty cool to meet these people, because you see them on the show and there are these elves and wizards and all this fantasy stuff. And then they're there in real life and you're like, oh, I didn't know you were that tall. I mean, literally, that's what I said to one of them. But it was great, because after the screening, we had Q&A, of course. And then after the Q&A, they had a great reception afterwards where they had full bar, past hors d'oeuvres, and they were all there. They were all talking to everybody. But literally, I have a suggestion for FYC event organizers. If you're out there listening, don't take this the wrong way. This will make your life and everybody else's life easier. I think it would be a smart move if you had a system in place to help the meet and greet with the talent. Because what happens is everybody's in one spot, right? All the actors are in one spot, and then everybody's trying to get there, and it's a big mess. And then finally, you go up to whoever you want to talk to. You talk to them for like 3 minutes, and everybody else is pushing against you. You take your selfie, and you've got to run to the other side of the room because there's no room for you to go. So my suggestion, just out there for organizers out there, please have a system where maybe you have 2 wranglers, they form a line, people can go, and then they can get their pictures and everybody can have a good time. That's my suggestion.
How important to you is that selfie when you're headed to an event like this? Are you really hoping to always get a photo with the talent? Or it seems like, that might be something that they kind of discourage sometimes.
Well, I think back in the day when it was first starting, they were kind of like, oh, that's not, because we're all part of the same industry. But I'm sorry. You're fooling yourself if you think that the majority of the people that are going to your FYC are not fans of the show themselves. Okay. I have asked other FYC attendees, do you go to the ones that you want to go to, or are you just open to all of them? No, I go to my favorite show. Literally.
Do you think you're more likely to vote for someone if they were nice and courteous, or than if they kind of gave you the stiff arm?
No, you know what? Here's the thing. I'm not going to say they're going to get my vote, but they're definitely going to get me to remember them. Right? So there's a difference. So if you are at an event and you just haven't been able to talk to them, but you still love their performance, I'm still going to consider their performance. But if they were nice and said a nice word or two and took a picture with me, they're going to pop into my head. It's no doubt they're going to pop into my head. I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I remember they were really nice. So it doesn't hurt.
That's a good tip, Tony. I'm sure we have plenty of awards publicists listening who are going to take that under consideration. All right, Tony, what else did you get up to this week?
So, and then I had an advanced screening of the film Conclave at the Grove AMC Theaters. And we were actually the very first audience on the West Coast to see the film. It was a little late getting there, so everybody was a little bit, on edge, but everybody was excited. And that's what I loved about this. The audience was enthusiastic. They were from the get-go. When everybody got there, they were excited about seeing the film. I guess people had talked about it already, and they were really excited about it. And this is like one of those times where you see a film, and usually when you go, for people who don't go to these award screenings, sometimes it's very formal with minimum audience participation, except for the obligatory applause at the end. And when I first got to LA, I thought it was the weirdest thing to be applauding at a movie theater, because you're like, why am I applauding? I'm not in like a Broadway show. But I realized, oh, well, maybe the writer or maybe the producer is sitting there with us. Anyway, so most people don't do anything during the film. They just watch it and they applaud and they leave. This film, there were laughs, there were gasps because of plot twists. Everybody was into it. So it was a very enjoyable screening, I must say.
A lot of buzz about that title. Seems like it's steadily moving up the ranks into the contender category.
Absolutely. And it's also very entertaining, which I like.
So what do you got coming up?
So this week, I'm lucky enough to go see an award screening of Blitz with a Q&A with writer, director, producer Steve McQueen and the wonderful, beautiful Saoirse Ronan, I already saw her other film the other week. So she's got now 2 films. I'm excited to see what this one's all about. And then I'm going to go see Night Bitch with Amy Adams. I don't think there's a Q&A, but I'm still intrigued about this film. I want to see it.
Sounds exciting. I'm looking forward to hearing all about those next week, Tony. Thank you, Tony Miros, our FYCit field agent, and to Ray Costa for the insightful conversation. We'd love to hear what you think of the season. Leave us a review on your podcast app or drop us a line at podcast@fycit.app. If you enjoyed the show, please tell a friend. Don't forget to follow us on social media at FYCit app, and be sure to visit our website, fycit.app, where you can sign up for our newsletter, download FYCit, and stay up to date on all things awards season. Thanks again for listening. Please join us again next week for a new episode of The Season as we explore more of the stories behind the awards. Until then, remember, at FYCit, award season starts here.